Hi everyone, pleasure to see you all. Hope you're having a great time in Berlin, as we are, and thanks to Alex Reimers and everyone at ICBC for a wonderful conference so far. And it's always a pleasure to be a part of their programs. They really do a great job of bringing people around the world together. I have a fantastic panel here to discuss entry into the European market. So I'm going to briefly say hello to our panelists here, allow them to introduce themselves. We'll start at the far end, my friend Martin. Martin, could you please say a few words about yourself?
Yes, hello, my name is Martin Böttger. I'm a partner of SKW Schwarz. I'm a law firm, 300 people, with 70 years history in Germany, with a large international network, also working with Tom very closely. I'm here with three colleagues of mine, that's Julia, Margaret, and Oliver, all in the hall. And I'm an M&A lawyer, practicing for 20 years, venture capital, M&A, private equity, and part of the Cannabis team of SKW.
Thank you, Martin. And my dear friend Guillermo, say a few words about yourself, brother.
Thank you, Tom. My name is Guillermo Fernandez, the co-founder of SKF Abogados. It's a law firm specialized in cannabis. We work all over Spain since 13 years ago. And we work around Europe and also some in US.
Wonderful. Benedikt, Sons.
Yeah, so first of all, thanks for being here. Very great. Looking forward to this panel. I'm Benedikt, co-founder and managing director of Cansativa. Cansativa is like really one of the first companies within the cannabis space in Germany. We're active since 2017 and are the exclusive partner of B2B when it comes to the distribution of cannabis from domestic cultivation. And our simple goal is that we want to enable cannabis and become the largest retail platform and the leading B2B marketplace within the recreational space.
Thank you. And Sanja?
Hello everyone, it's great to be here. My name is Sanja Bonelli and I'm the CEO of New Garden Group. Our business has two focuses. We have one medical GMP facility in North Macedonia, and we have a second manufacturing facility here in the heart of Berlin, where we produce health and wellness products as white and private label, but we also have successfully positioned our brand Herbalist on the market. And feel free to come and visit us. We have a booth downstairs.
Thank you, Sanja. And for those of you who don't know me, I'm Tom Zuber. I'm the managing partner of Zuber Lawler. We have been in cannabis in America since 2006, which makes us a dinosaur. That was, I think we were probably the first bona fide corporate law firm to be in the space, or certainly one of them. So we represent a large percentage of the biggest brands in North American cannabis, and it's a pleasure to be here. So let's go ahead and get started with Sanja. Sanja, this is a question for the whole group, but let's start with you. Where is the European cannabis market heading over the next 6-12 months?
Thank you, Tom. Obviously, we all want to see the recreational market opening, and following the public consultation hearing, which has been concluded in the past month, I think the regulation is now heading towards the final stages, and we will hopefully see a draft law reaching the Parliament by the end of the year. The agenda is clearly very ambitious. But however, there are a lot of political and legislative hurdles, such as the UN Single Convention, as well as the Schengen Treaty, for example. I think that the most important thing is really to see government, let's say, establishing those social and health as well as commercial and taxation policies to be able to, let's say, provide or secure a well-functioning market. When looking at the CBD industry, this is, let's say, it's going through quite a rough time at the moment. Especially in Germany, and simply because of the very complicated regulatory environment. Novel foods is still an issue, and especially in Germany, we are still seeing authorities going against CBD products, which makes it really difficult for companies to to really deliver a sustainable business model. I think that looking at some other markets in Europe, like UK, for example, or even Netherlands, where CBD is tolerated or is still sold as food supplement, they are performing much better, and even the conversation that we're having now with the UK companies, they're all saying that the market has recovered quite well post-COVID or post-lockdowns, especially the brick and mortar market. But the trend in Germany has been mostly negative, and we're seeing declining revenues, but also we're seeing very little willingness. So in terms of scale, we're seeing very little willingness from the bigger retail chains to list CBD products in absence of legal clarity. So I think that we're still far away, and the novel foods process and everything that is that the ICA is doing also on the toxicological studies and so on. I think this is going to take a while, so it's not going to be an easy and quick fix. We'll see how this will evolve, yeah, but in general, it's the CBD industry at the moment. It's not an easy place to be. I have to say, it's not impossible. We have managed with our own brand, Cannabis, to get quite a big market share. And even last year, we expanded to 30 countries, and we are placed. Our products are placed with the major retailers just because we have been building a brand since the beginning. And I think this is something that is very important and something that has been neglected in the past in the CBD space, and and we are seeing much more quality brands, I have to say, on the market. But I think that as we move on and as the industry expands, this will be even much more important. And I think those brands or those companies who are building brands and who are building a compelling story behind the brand will ultimately be the winners. In general, I think when we look at the market from a medical perspective, there is, or in general, just the cannabis market, there is still a lot of stigma. There is still a lot of lack of understanding of cannabis. The medical market in Germany is by far the biggest in Europe, but there is still only 2% of the doctors willing to prescribe medical cannabis. There are different reasons for that, but I think it really comes down to the legal framework, to the education, and also to clinical evidence. There is just not enough, although there is real life evidence which has a lot of validation and which shouldn't be ignored. But that educational process needs to happen. Education needs to happen, and also, let's say, a more simplified legal framework in Europe, just to be able to allow the industry to expand. So yeah, I think for me that legal, let's say, clarity, both on the THC and CBD side, will have to happen. And we will see the industry expand, and which will then hopefully bring the very much needed stability, especially on the capital markets.
Thank you, Sanja. That was a very helpful overview. And Martin or Benedikt, would you mind telling us, doing a bit more of a dive into Germany, what's going on here, as long as we're here, particularly on the recreational front? What are we going to see over the next couple of years in regard to recreational cannabis here in Germany?
Shall I kick it off?
Yeah.
Okay, so first of all, what was already mentioned is we're like in the middle of a legalization process, which is amazing. Germany is like really the driving force, I would consider that. And it might be that Germany will be the starting point for a whole domino effect across Europe. So what we do here is like really a thing that didn't happen in history. It's huge. We should be all aware of that. And when it comes to the German market, we already know that there is an existing illicit market. There are already, on an annual base, 400, maybe 800 metric tons sold on an annual base. Trying to translating this into a addressable market, we're talking about maybe 4 or even 8 billion euros as an addressable market when we use the 10 euros per gram as a figure for a valid price. So the economic perspective is massive, and in addition to that, it is also clear that the state, the Federal Republic, they can benefit from such a program. And I think, which is good, and what we heard already today among those great panels, is that everyone is aware of that. And I think everyone here in this room feels this intense process already, is excited about it. But me, as someone who's like in the middle of the industry, obviously talking to politicians, talking to other suppliers, talking to distributors, talking to pharmacies or potential point of sales, there is still just this aspect that we need to wait for some further clarity. So a lot of things can still go wrong, but if we have these debates, these discussions, I believe that also timeline-wise, what Mr. Lienert mentioned earlier this morning, if we have a draft law beginning of next year, there is a real opportunity that quite shortly after that we have the first start of sales, and that's something I'm super excited about. And then what we also saw last week is that Malta, Luxembourg and Germany published a joint statement on certain regulatory aspects of the cannabis framework, which is also a nice indicator that things are also discussed on a European level. That's what also you, Sanja, mentioned, UN Single Convention, European law and all that, and it's a good sign, and I'm very optimistic.
Very good. And what's a short time frame, assuming that legislation passes early next year? Is a short time frame 6 months, 12 months, 24 months before we see the first sales recreational?
So it's really hard to assess because a lot of bits and pieces are in the responsibility of the regulator and of governmental authorities. But we have a clear commitment from our government that within their legislative period there will be cannabis legally sold in Germany. That's what they mentioned in their coalition agreement, so it definitely will be before September 2025. That's their clear commitment, and if I were them, I would try to make this happen earlier to also have this support for a future election, maybe from all the people, not only in this room, but out there, because I believe the society is ready for it.
Indeed. Guillermo, would you mind telling us what's going on in Spain on the THC front, medicinal and if you care to recreational as well?
Sure, thank you, Tom. In Spain, medical regulation just happened. It will be implemented like in a year. We are one step behind from Germany, for example. But that's good news for Spain. The medical agency has now 6 months to study the health subcommission resolution. This medical regulation will allow people access to cannabis with medical conditions like multiple sclerosis, some seizure disorders, endometriosis, nausea and vomiting for chemotherapy, pain related to cancer, chronic pain, including neuropathic pain. So it's been legal to grow in Spain for a lot of years, but when this medical regulation is implemented, pharmacy will be able to dispense to qualified patients. The situation is not as commercial like in other countries, but there is a significant progress and a lot of room for growth. This is the situation now, but keep an eye on Spain because the politician party in power, they asked my firm to draft an adult use regulation last year. The regulation could be voted as soon as this year. If it doesn't make it, we think that this is an important first step to lead more change in the near future. So let's see what happens.
Wonderful. And why don't we stay with you, Guillermo, and can you tell us a bit about the Spanish CBD market and what's going on that front as well?
Yeah, of course. like the majority countries in Europe, Spain has not its own CBD regulation, but there is a huge market about CBD products in Spain. I think Spanish consumers, that's what I read, actually use CBD at much higher rates than other countries in Europe. So, as I said, there is a really, really big market in there. Right now we are seeing a lot of companies making moves to establish their position in the market ahead of further legal change in the future. A lot of things changed after the European Court resolution on CBD. A lot of things changed, I mean, in a good way. I'm going to spend quickly these three segments of the market we have. You know, we have like CBD flowers, cosmetic products, and food supplements. Talking about the CBD flowers, as a good attorney, I have to tell you that you still can get in trouble. There will be CBD flowers, but there is a lot of demand for this product, and risk comes with good business opportunities. Also, I want you to know that we are being successful in every single case. We are winning every single case on court, because obviously, yeah, we are selling a cannabis flower, but a CBD flower is not psychoactive. So this product is not psychoactive. The public health is not at risk, and this is what our judges and prosecutors are starting to understand now. You can also, if you want to sell CBD flowers, import these flowers from any European legal market. And for you to know, if you have been in Spain in a short period of in the last 1-2 years, there is so many stores selling CBD flowers, and thankfully this is not gonna appear to be a priority for the police. About cosmetic products, cosmetic products containing cannabinoids were never a focus for the police, and even less now after European added CBD, CBD, and CBN to all-level ingredients in cosmetics. I'm talking about COSME list, and as everybody knows, the European list for cosmetic ingredients. And about food supplements, I think that everybody knows, as I said already, we have to wait what happens with the European Food Administration. Let's see what happens. But Spain is a really good place now to set up a company. You can do it quickly and expensively. There is a huge market. There is a present, a significant sort of mid-term opportunity for growth. And for entrepreneurs who are not afraid of a piece of risk, there is also an opportunity to get an early foothold in the market with many cannabis users prior to further legalization. And just to let you know, it's a really good moment to think about franchise as well.
Thank you, Guillermo. It's a very helpful overview. Benedikt, do you want to tell us, the medical cannabis market is so exciting to watch from the US perspective, developing here in Europe. I'd like to hear your thoughts and the whole panel's thoughts, but starting with you. Is the medical market here still attractive from your perspective? And what is the right time to engage the European cannabis market from both domestic practitioners, from domestic companies and aspiring companies, and also from the international perspective, looking into Europe?
Yeah, so first of all, exciting that we also talk about medical cannabis today. I think many are very much focusing on recreational, but let's face it, the only legal market for Germany and many other countries in Germany is the medical cannabis market. And the development first, it's super exciting how it started here in 2017. We were talking about 1.7 metric tons sales in 2017. Last year we were up at 15 tons, so that's quite a significant increase, and we expect for the next few years a further very positive development. However, when we then deep dive into different parts of this German market, and I talk about the European market in a bit, we need to look at numbers of patients, we need to look at pharmacies, and we need to look at doctors. First, there are around 300,000 patients in the German market. If we compare that, for example, to Canada in a world legalization of adult use in this country, there were figures like 1% of the population that seemed to be pretty reasonable. So we have some potential here in Germany, 300,000 versus a potential of maybe 800,000. That's point one. And those patients are divided into self-payers, so very cost-sensitive payers, and people and patients that are under statutory health insurance coverage. And this is important to understand that the part of those self-payers that are rather cost and price sensitive, they might transfer in a legalized adult use market, maybe into self-therapy, if the offer in a adult use market is maybe cheaper and you have comparable products. So that's important. The second group I wanted to look at is the number of doctors, and that was also already mentioned. There are not many doctors that are actually prescribing medical cannabis in Germany. It's a limited number. There can be still a significant growth, and this comes back to a more professional education, which needs to be implemented, and we as an industry need to work on. And last but not least, I think it's quite interesting that out of 18,000 pharmacies, only around maybe 2,000 or 3,000 pharmacies in Germany are regularly dealing and handling cannabis, and just maybe 100 are responsible for significant portions of the market and revenue. And it's also exciting to see that we have on each of those groups still a huge potential, but if legalization of adult use happens, there might be an effect. However, I still believe it's a attractive medical cannabis market in Germany, so there's still plenty of opportunities to enter the market. However, it's not like 2, 3, or 5 years ago where you just needed to have a product and then somehow you can sell it. You need to be smart. You need to really think through what's your business model, what's your part of the value chain, what's your value proposition, and then there's still a lot of opportunity to make a good business. And for the European opportunity, obviously, Germany is a bit unique because we have statutory health insurance coverage, which helps to really accelerate potential sales, accelerate revenues. But we see in other markets, let's look at Malta, let's look at Poland, we see that exports are already, for example, happening into those countries. So there is something happening. And on the other hand, there are suppliers, cultivation sites in Denmark, in Spain, in Portugal. So there's a whole ecosystem that developed over the last few years, and those companies are also making good business.
It's wonderful. Any other thoughts on the panel here, particularly as to the timing? When is the right timing to enter the European market from the perspective of others looking inside it?
If I may, I just wanted to say I'm also thankful to be here, and I think the recreational thing, they will do it. It may take longer, but they want to have the tax anyway. So, but again, this doesn't help us over the next 6 to 12 months. So this is the original question, what is the market going to look like in 6 to 12 months? So, we're mid of the year, we have crisis going on in Europe, we have a very tense macroeconomic climate, we have, we're struggling with European finances. European Central Bank is not really daring to put up the interest rates to a certain level because they say that the economy will go down again. So these are all framework conditions that are not ideal for the market, not even in the healthcare market. It's not a B2C, if we're talking about medical cannabis, it's not a B2C business right here. But nevertheless, investor climate is decreasing, it's getting worse. And we as M&A lawyers, we see that, we are told by the PE investors what the climate is, we're like pre-indicators. We're not driving the deals, but I see what's going on in deal activity, and this is already reduced. And this is, I think it has to be regarded closely, looked at closely. We cannot say, because recreational is a good new thing, hey, this is 2 years ago, 2 years in the future, 2 years to go. This will not help us immediately. So the industry has to face, and also companies willing to do business here have to face, that this is still a pharma business. It's a real pharma business, and pharma is complicated. It's highly regulated, it takes long, it requires huge investment, it takes years. I mean, investors have really bought into the infrastructure already, as Benedikt said. So they have been here. I would invite investors to go on and develop new medicines on a cannabis basis. We've just had little products. And the market is not unlimited, but it's still there. But the recreational will not help us out of this situation. And nevertheless, I'm confident that this industry will grow. And I mean, in terms of the political climate here in Germany, it's good that we have this kind of leadership in this area of cannabis. I would hope that government would show this leadership maybe in other areas as well. I mean, they need to drive this, because the economy in the world is not great at the moment. We have divided worlds. They need to help the industry move forward. That's my view, and I hope we all can contribute to that.
Thank you, Martin. And Martin, let's stay with you. This is really open for the whole panel. I'd love to hear everyone's perspective on this. Do you have any advice for companies that are looking to enter the European market? And that's a general question.
Yeah, you get a general answer. So I cannot comment on the European individual. We have no harmonized market in this area, apparently. So I would just say, if we talk to people willing to enter the market, well, go to Germany. It's the largest market. It's well equipped. We have the infrastructure. Also the players in this area. We've spoken about this before we had this panel. And it's already set. There were a couple of deals. They have bought in. Everyone knows what to do. The cannabis agency is working. So the volumes are not high, but the infrastructure is working. So you can settle here, and you can use Germany as a starting point for a European expansion. I mean, if you have to be sure when you come to Germany, of course, apart from the regulatory stuff and the tax setup, you have to be sure what product are you selling. Are you going to be an investment company, like a buy and build company? We know that in Germany also these concepts are pursued. Or are you a developer, or are you trading? A mixture of everything. In early stage, in early phases of a market, this can attract attention from investors, but it also dilutes your business case. And in the end, investors want to earn money, and they want to have, also PE investors, they want to have a clear view on the cash line. Yeah, and I think there can only be one platform or two platforms, but not a third and not a fourth one. You really need to specialize. You need to be aware that this is a pharma game, and this is really complicated.
Maybe I'd like to add some further aspects to these points. You have the opportunity, if you enter the medical cannabis market, to learn a lot about cannabis, about regulatory, about quality systems, about distribution, about sales channels, about so many aspects that are super important for not only the medical cannabis business, but also for the recreational cannabis system that will happen at some point. So I believe that some companies, maybe this is a bit cash intense, but it might make sense to enter a market, to learn, to get exposed to the mechanisms. Because let's face it, the adult use market, it will be a regulated market. We need to accept that it will be highly regulated, and we discussed some of those aspects in this morning. What if the point of sales is licensed dispensaries, but also pharmacies? What if marketing for products is not allowed? Those are all things that in a certain form we already have existent in the medical market. So I believe exposure here can be worth, and for us as a company, we are in the industry, You said dinosaur for the US. We are maybe dinosaurs for Germany when it comes to medical cannabis. This is a real value proposition that you have because you have a team, you have processes, you have the knowledge, and all this is probably one of those things that are super important for the recreational world as well.
It's great. And any other comments, Sonia? Do you have any thoughts on?
Yeah, I think that the cannabis market is no country. There's absolutely nothing transferable from territory to territory, and I think this is the challenge in Europe. That every single market is handling it differently. But I think that you also really need to be operational on the market to understand how to work within the confines of the existing legislation and quite a complicated and restrictive supply chain. So, and I think that ultimately also in the recreational business, the supply chain, and for those companies who are already in the supply chain or have built a distribution network, this is going to be really, really important. It might be different distribution channels, but at least they understand the supply chain.
And when you say nothing is transferable market to market, what do you mean by nothing is transferable market to market?
Because the legislative frameworks are completely different in every European country. How the license, the imports, the GMP, GACP, the products, what goes into the formulation, and so on. So it's very different to each market. So that's what I meant with understanding.
That's a fascinating topic to me because the United States obviously is split up by sovereign jurisdiction. There are 50 states, and each state does it differently. And furthermore, unlike Europe, you can't put cannabis in the trunk of your car and drive it across the state line without risking getting arrested, right? So Europe is, in some sense, going to develop a little bit like the United States, I think, if it's okay to say that. But in some ways, it's going to develop, I think, in a more exciting way, with greater interaction between jurisdictions. So I think, Sonia, that point is it's worth exploring, I think, that where exactly things are going to fall. Because, of course, you're right, market to market is going to be very different. But unlike the United States, you're going to be able to have operations that distribute cannabis to different territories within Europe way sooner than that's going to happen in the United States, which will require federal legalization in the United States. So on that note, maybe Martin will come to you, weighing this one at you first, but this really is, again, for the whole panel. If I'm a company outside the United States, outside Europe, and I'm looking to enter, whether it's from Africa or from anywhere else, where do I want to set up my holding company? What country do I want to be in and launch operations from which to send cannabis out to the other European territories?
In Germany.
Yeah.
No, there's not one answer apparently, but definitely, I mean, there are a couple of players who have their holding structure also in Germany. And I think a couple of aspects are important. Substance, and where is your focus? This is not only relevant for tax purposes, so even if you have a holding structure under the European regulations, European guidelines, you have preferential tax treatment in a group, but also there you need to have substance in the individual group entities. You cannot say it's just a shell or it's a post box. This doesn't work anymore. It's like 20 years ago. Therefore, I think Germany would be a good start. If you have your substance and the focus there, if you want to control the group from Germany, then Germany is your place to be also for the holding. But if you are based in UK, or if you are if you are originally from North Macedonia, and you have a plant there, not a problem to have the holding company there. We've spoken to Sanja. There are also groups that have their holding companies offshore, not really, but in tax preferred countries like Cyprus, Malta, also the Netherlands, we know, have a rather low tax corporate tax rate. Also the UK and Ireland have a low tax rate. So tax can be a driver, but it doesn't help you if your substance is somewhere else, because then it will just it will put you into trouble, because then you may risk that you have a permanent establishment abroad. These are the two. So where a substance, and do you have a permanent establishment, a fictitious permanent establishment abroad maybe, or the wrong one in another country, that will put you into tax trouble. So, and therefore, in this regard, I can only advise substance, look at your organization, where are the people you want to hire, what is an attractive market, what is maybe the first place for your product rollout, and then put this all in a reasonable compliance regime. Don't stop with the regulatory filings, also include a corporate compliance system, because otherwise, you know, in Germany it's particularly strict. If you don't have a compliance system, you are committing an offense. If you are a manager and you're not looking after the system, you can't say this, my -2 manager did that mistake, I'm responsible for what's going on in business. And that's basic. So we have a lot of flexibility, but these are the aspects I would put in the center.
Maybe I add some color or comments on what we also discussed just before that particular question with regards to harmonization of EU regulatory frameworks, and also what you mentioned, cross-border trade. Because what we see already in the medical market is that there is a product flow from Denmark to Germany, from Germany to Poland, from Spain to Germany, from Portugal, Netherlands, whatever, to Germany. So we have a existing cross-border trade already, and that's, when talking to US folks, that's pretty exciting, I think. And this is also a huge opportunity and chance when we're talking about the recreational system, because harmonizing it across Europe is probably crucial to make it right. Otherwise, we may end in a situation where we have individual solutions in individual countries, and this will definitely not work out. And at the same time, it gives us already in a existing medical world quite a taste of how a inner European ecosystem and supply chains could look like. And that's pretty exciting, and here I actually disagree a bit with your statement that things are not transferable between territories. I believe we already have in the pharmaceutical world quite a harmonized system. As I said, trade is possible, and a joint goal of the European Union should be to adapt to that and adjust it, and also make a harmonized recreational system in the future possible.
Very good, thank you. And I'm going to have a final question, and then I want to leave a few minutes for questions from the audience here. This is going to be an open question for the panel. We talked about entering the European market by way of setting up a company. What about through investment? Do you have any advice for folks looking into Europe from other parts of the world that are considering entering the market through a substantial investment into an existing or soon-to-be-launched cannabis company in the European market? That's open for the group here. Sanja, or anyone else?
Yeah, I can say about Spain would be a good business to appeal for producing medical cannabis. We have already several companies producing medical cannabis in Spain. I think the first company started producing medical cannabis in Spain was like 7 years ago. You have absolutely security to run your business, and now as things have become more like cannabis friendly in Europe, the Spanish medical agency is making it easier to get a license to produce cannabis. And why would be a good idea to come to Spain to produce cannabis? There is a low cost of production. We have, as everybody knows, excellent climate to outdoor cultivation, and I want to remember everyone how's the price electricity going, so this is a good point. Rapid approval process, and opportunity for first mover advantage at the market is poised to open up to domestic patients very soon, and the market is not crowded at all yet. So there is just like 4 main requirements to get a license to grow in Spain. You need a LOI, you have to sign a LOI with an medical company to sell the product you grow in Spain, you produce in Spain. Also you have to obviously to provide that the seeds or the clones you wanna work with are certified clones or seeds, and just a security plan and an engineer project. That's all you need in Spain to become a cannabis medical producer. So anything we could help you.
Maybe to add some ideas on how I would look into a potential investment. So I would really look at what is the vision, what is the team, what is the operational track record. And if those three items somehow match together, and I would believe that this team is capable to really drive the cannabis industry, then I would believe those are good indicators for a potential investment.
Couldn't agree more.
Just maybe to add, if you have an international structure, if you have a large player in the back, easier to invest because you can make use of cost advantages with the expensive dollar at the moment. So, and you have a longer value chain, so you have more flexibility. But another tip is only invest in what you understand. And the German market, generally the market debt is a complex picture. So if you invest, speak to other investors, co-invest, invest with other smaller funds that have already been invested in that company. Ask them, look at the due diligence they have done. You don't have to do your own due diligence,
Very good. And with that, I want to leave a few questions from the audience here.
Let's hear it for Tom, everybody. All right, you got your hand up right away. Please keep your questions to the first 4 rows so I don't have to walk too far. I'm kidding.
Hi, Ricardo from Macron Solicitors in London. Just a question regarding allegiance between all European countries when it comes to recreational, which, Benedikt, you were mentioning. I can see that happening for Germany because Germany has got an advanced medicinal space. But don't you see there being a problem, and this is open to all the panel, by having a recreational market in the rest of Europe where their medicinal market has yet to develop? Don't we run the risk of cannibalizing the medicinal market with a recreational market? That's my question.
I'll actually take a shot at that just because I think there are lessons to be learned from how we screw things up in the United States in some respects. So I'll take it from that perspective. I was just having a conversation with a new friend just maybe 2 hours ago, and we were talking about how in the United States there was a shift in focus from the medicinal market to the recreational market, and that's sensational in many respects, and it's very exciting. I've been very excited about that and still am, but there was something that was lost too, which was the medicinal conversation. It got lost in the United States. And that in the states that obviously are legalizing at the recreational level. And that is a significant loss because there is so much technology that God put into this plant, and we really don't understand it. And at Zuber, we're a bunch of bioscience nerds, so we actually love that stuff. And love hearing how this stuff not only alleviates the pain of cancer patients, for instance, but actually may help fight cancer. I mean, that is just an amazing statement, and we haven't explored it. And it is a WTF sort of moment where you realize we just forgot to really focus on that as a nation. And so I would love to see things develop differently here in Europe, where as you go to the recreational market, it's great to be able to buy a joint to relax, but there is a danger, sir, and I agree with you, there's a danger that the medical conversation will be lost here as it was in the States. And I think that would be very sad for the whole world, because this plant can do much more than help people relax. It is medicinal, it's medicine. And so thank you for the opportunity just to talk about something we screwed up in the US, and I hope our friends in Europe get it more right than we did.
We're gonna move on.
Thank you for the panel. They're really informative. My question is, what is your advice for Latin American markets to access European markets? And what is your vision on the Latin American markets?
Maybe I take that one. So first of all, the question would be, what is your business model? Do you want to bring ISU, cannabis, into the German and European market? Then my question would be, do you want to do everything on your own, meaning building your own assets, building your own license sets, and be a operational company in the target market or not. If the question is yes, build it, get the funds, get the team, go for it. If you want to go for a partnership approach, having someone that can actually enable your market access, can take care of the nitty-gritty stuff like distribution, storage, packaging, addressing the point of sales. There are some very good companies that could help you and assist you and give you this route to market. And obviously, this is one key activity of one of our business units. So we're very much doing this as a daily business.
Thank you. One last one over here.
Hi guys, I'm Stuart McKenzie from Rio Kino. Germany, talking about the role in Germany and how it's going to develop in the medical and also CBD world. It's obviously a very big pharmaceutical producer. And what are the pharmaceutical companies doing to support or put roadblocks in? And when it does become, from medical and recreational, whatever, what do you think the role of pharmaceutical companies will be moving forward?
The rule.
The role.
The role.
What can they do after it becomes recreational? There's no need for the doctor to grow it.
So the exciting part of it is that most of the companies in the pharmaceutical, medical cannabis space are not big pharma traditional companies. So probably the leading companies, they're not pharma companies from their background. There's actually just maybe one or let's say two players in the German market that at least got some traction and have a pure traditional pharma background. So if I would look to our competitors in the market, I would assume as long as this is a valuable, maybe profitable business, why exiting it? So my first statement would be that those that are engaged in the medical market already without a pharma background or a traditional pharma background, they will stay. And this is also something, if you look into other countries like Canada, many companies had a medical background but not a traditional pharma background. They stayed, they added recreational activities. And that's what I believe will also happen in Germany. And the second part is maybe the further traditional pharma companies are getting engaged in the market, seeing this opportunity, but maybe not in terms of much as the formulations, but rather with very traditional finished products running through clinical trials, having a real market authorization. But that's really the long-term game. We're talking about years, we're talking about IP protection, we're talking about significant and heavy funds, and this is probably the space where those traditional pharma companies have significant advantages compared to other companies that are engaged in the space.
If I can add, I think consolidation will tell. So they will buy, as soon as this industry has developed, they will not try to copy-paste business models, but they will unfold M&A activity sooner or later.
Great. Thank you all very much. Let's hear it for the whole panel.